Welcome to the Tranquil Domain. For 11 years, Wizards of the Coast and the DCI hosted a yearly tournament where the first place prize was to design your own Magic card. Today's video is about the creation of those cards. We gathered all 11 Invitational winners here to talk a little bit about what it's like to create your own Magic card.
Sylvan Safekeeper.
Back in '97, they hosted the first, I guess it was called the Duelist Invitational back then in Hong Kong, which was still British at the time. It went back to China in June of '97, I believe. So we were there in like January, February '97 and played for the big honor of winning. Well, if you won the tournament, you get to design a Magic card, right? But I mean, I was young at the time, and I was basically just enjoying the free roll of getting Wizards to fly me to Hong Kong and play against the top Magic players of the world. So I know later they had you make your submissions before the tournament just to make sure that people actually had ideas. But I mean, always been more of a player rather than a developer, or I've never even fantasized about making my own Magic cards. So I had absolutely no ideas. But during the tournament, we joked around that I was such a slacker back then. Like I had no ambitions, or I was just a bum, right? So the joke was to make an enchant world that was called the World of Bums. Not burn, but the World of Bums. And it would be a red enchant world for 1 red mana with absolutely no flavor text on it, or no text on it whatsoever. It just did nothing. It was an enchant world that came into play, did nothing. So it was basically a red disenchant for other enchant worlds, and I mean, it was just an idea that we came up with for in like a minute. And I never thought I would win the tournament, but when I won, that was the original idea I had. But they kind of dismissed it right off the bat, and then I just couldn't come up with another idea for a few years. So I just declined to make a card. I actually had one more idea that I got from the guy who won the World Championships back in '95 or '96, I believe, '95. A Swiss guy called Alexander Blumke. He had an idea for a card that he like talked to me in private. He was like, "Well, what about this? What if you made a memory lapse, a counter spell that also memory lapses itself? Like you counter a spell and then you put the spell back on top of your own library as well." So I submitted that just to see if it would fly, but they tested that a bit, and it turned out to be insanely broken. It's like a hard lock if your opponent casts the same spell every turn, right? So then I just stopped playing Magic. Did not go into the army, despite some facts on the internet saying I did, but didn't play Magic for a few years. Went to the Invitationals a couple more times since, based on old merits. But then when I got to see the card designed by Darwin Castle, the Avalanche Riders, I was kind of hyped to make my own card anyway. And this was back in, I guess, Odyssey block, right before that. So then I came up with, I fooled around with some ideas through email with Mark Rosewater, and in the end, it ended up being a pretty sweet card. I think my original idea for that card was like a Quarian Ranger, but rather than untapping a creature, it would give a creature hexproof, right? And they thought the idea was pretty good, but as it turned out, in Judgment, the threshold mechanic wanted you to have cards in your graveyard, so they thought it would be better if it was to sack a land rather than to return a land to your hand. So it was actually pretty close to my original idea when I actually submitted the green one guy. But the idea of putting me on a spider on the picture, though, that was totally the artist.
Avalanche Riders.
When I initially designed Avalanche Riders, I was trying to more closely mimic Necrotal, because Necrotal was one of my favorite creatures. So I initially designed it to be 2 red and 2, because Echo didn't exist yet, so I wasn't taking Echo into account. And I had it a 2/1, just like Necrotal, the only difference being that instead of first strike and destroy a creature, it was haste and destroy land, because it was red, not black. But then they came back to me and said, "Hey, we want to make creatures with Echo, and so we'd like to put Echo on your creature, and here's what Echo is. So we need to make your creature better." And the way they made it better was, instead of a 2/1, it became a 2/2. Instead of 2 red, it became 1 red, which suddenly becomes splashable in all these crazy decks. So I obviously made it a much more interesting card. I think that that's what everyone who gets the privilege of designing a card once is for it to get played in a lot of successful decks. And I was fortunate enough that obviously I could probably name a few different archetypes that had a lot of success with that card.
Rootwater League.
I've been an invitational champion, beating all the other top players. That was great. It was really, really great. Got my own card.
Meddling Mage.
I just really have always been, I've never liked combo. I've never, it took me a long time to even be willing to play combo decks. And I don't know if I had a particular card in mind with what I was trying to do. Yeah, I was just trying to sort of make a permanent, something that a blue player could just put into play that would help to stop the combo, and then maybe they could tap out later or something. The card I submitted is much weaker than Meddling Mage, by the way, but that's because I was trying to get them to make like basically like a spike tail creature, so like where like you could like mana leak something with by sacking it. So I think two things happened during the time when I was like submitting the card and when they were tweaking it. One, I believe they had already designed a spike tail creature. I don't think it existed. I think like I came up with that, but they had already come up with it. So it's like, well, we can't do this because we already did this. But then they just really realized that this is right at the point in time where they were realizing that creatures were just sort of bad and they were trying to make them better. So like for the time, Meddling Mage, the way they made it was way ahead of curve. Like blue getting a 2-mana creature that also has an effect and is still a 2/2 was just like shocking. By today's standards, obviously, it's nothing. But back then, people were like, wow, I can't believe they made this card that good, that it does something cool, but also against a creature deck, it can just like trade with the real creature, you know? So they made it, I love what they did. And I think I'm very glad that they, part of the problem they were having to design the card is like, you don't want to like overshoot and be disappointed. Or like where they're like, well, we can't make this card you wanted, so we made this, and you're like, that's not the card I wanted. So I feel like I nailed it where I undershot, and then they upped it to the appropriate power level, and they understood exactly what I wanted to do, and they did it. So I got very lucky in that sense. But I don't know if I had a particular card I wanted to name or stop. I just really, it was just really about I wanted to be able to play control and play combo. So I'm sure things like City of Solitude were on my radar for kind of things I didn't want to deal with. But yeah, I was just really a control player back then. And I've always really liked the tempo control style decks too. Things like Counter Sliver or whatever, Rug Delver, obviously. And yeah, Meddling Mage worked out really well. A couple Pro Tour winning decks have had it. And yeah, definitely one of the, I feel I've been very lucky in terms of the invitational winners where I feel like I'm on the, only about like, I guess maybe like, I don't know, 4 of us really had a card that made a huge impact. And I'm like one of those. So that's nice. But yeah, they nailed what I wanted the card to do, but I don't know if I had a particular card in mind.
Shadow Mage Infiltrator.
I won the Invitational that year. This was just when they had like the Urza's sets, which had, the untapped lands mechanics. So like, Time Spiral and Frantic Search, but also like Treachery. And I like to play a lot of control decks. So I was like, it'd be great if they could make a Wrath of God that then untapped your lands. Now I said to myself, all right, if they make this thing, it's going to really have to cost at least 5. Okay, I also want to make it 2 colors, which they had Supreme Verdict after that, but this was, there weren't as many 2-color cards back then, and I came with Wrath of Leknif because I like the fact that my name backwards sounded like some like evil wizard from like Tolkien or something, you know what I mean? And it recently got like published, printed some unset, and I deliberately made it cost 4 mana because I wanted to give them something to change on it, but then I got denied. I mean, it was for 2 different reasons. I think the bigger one was they just want us to make creatures because Kai got denied for some other reason for his card. But they also, weren't really in love with the untapping lands mechanic, which I understand because it was obviously led to a lot of bad places. Now this card might have ruined standard in other ways, but it wasn't going to ruin standard. You're not going infinite with your Wrath of God. So then, I made Shadow Mage Infiltrator, which will be pretty good because it's a pretty bit better Ophidian. Creatures were a lot weaker back then. It ended up being in the same set as Psychotog. which cost the exact same amount. It was, the cornerstone of, some very good blue-black decks. So it didn't really get a ton of play. So, if you were ranking the invitational cards, I think Mike Long's actually would be below mine in terms of how much use it's seen. But we're both scraping the real bottom down there, So it's actually unfortunate because literally the card they printed was the exact card that I came up with. And I was like, man, I should have gone for some more. It's like when you make an offer and they snap call and you're like, I guess maybe I could have snuck some more power in there.
Void Mage Prodigy.
So my invitational submission was an enchantment for 1 blue. But, while it's in play, your opponent has to play with their hand face open, so you get to see their hand. Then for blue, you can sacrifice it to draw a card, and for blue, you sacrifice it to counter target spell. Which back then there were like a lot of like blue control decks or combo decks, and the card would have been actually busted, I think. Like back then that was considered way too powerful and not printable. Honestly, by today's standard, like I don't think they like to print unconditional counter spells anymore. But I don't think it would be crazy for a total of 3 mana. Like I think it would be very good, and people would obviously play it if it was printed now. But like back then, people were like, they can never print it like that. And then they turned it into Void Mage Prodigy. But yeah, today it would probably be printable. But you had very little influence over the invitational cards back then. Because the problem was a lot of them used set mechanics and they obviously couldn't talk to you about it. So basically you just submitted something and then they did something with it, which was kind of sad because a lot of these cards just ended up lackluster and unplayable. So that was a little bit unfortunate. I don't know what the current approach for these world champion cards is, but like it seems like what they're doing is they just look at the set and then look at the card that they think is good and use that, which I think that's a way better approach. I mean, Yuta Takahashi's card, the 2/1 flyer, very playable. And then obviously Javier's card was a good card. I mean, it didn't dominate or anything, but I don't think that's the point. But like, I think it's good if these cards see some amount of play. That's just cool. And in the recent world champion cards, I guess with Nathan they kind of missed. Like the one, I think it's a 0/3 blue flyer that attacks with power equal to cards in your hand or something like that. I'm not even sure, but that thing basically didn't see much play. But it's in some cube lists, so no, you did like I don't think anyone had any influence on the design process. So the way it works for the Invitational is that there were 16 people invited and everyone submitted a card. And usually people would just go way over the top and make stuff way too powerful. And then they would do something with the winner's card, but you didn't really have any design influence, which honestly, I don't think, I think that's expected. Like it would be nice if they picked better cards, and I don't know if that was intentional or if the grasp on isn't just that strong on what's powerful. I don't know. But like, for example, Chris Picula submitted a creature that's like, it was like a blue 1/2/3. When it comes into play, you name a card, and then you can sacrifice it to counter spell that card as it's being played, which would be not great. Like maybe a sideboard card against combo decks or something, and they turn that into Meddling Mage, which is a great card. But like I don't think Chris had any design input on that either. Some weird decisions were made with Meddling Mage, but
Solemn Simulacrum.
I think the invitation I won was the first one that was played online. So we played on I don't even remember what it was called. Was it MTGO or something like that? I haven't really read up on the formats of the previous invitationals, but I remember that there was a lot of bidding, like how many lives and how many cards you should bid to like use each deck. we didn't spend that much time together because of we were just sitting in front of our monitors, kind of playing games. Instead, I think the other invitations were more like a social event, and this was not as fun. You don't really get to know all the other players as much. So I was really out of ideas for creating a card. I think I got this request just a few weeks before the Invitational. So I got help from a friend, and his name Johan Sadikpour. He also played the Pro Tours with me, a bunch of them, and he kind of gave me this idea for a card that would be mad card advantage. So the kind of idea was that when it enters the game, you get a card, and when it leaves the game, you get a land. And then we made it blue-green because it should. I mean, those are the colors that does that, and we tried to balance it so that it costs four mana in total, and it was supposed to be flying, and my plan was to use it with Astral Slide if it got created. That was the idea, and the card name was Forest Folk. We got to choose that as well, and that was the submission. And then they changed it into an artifact instead, and you kind of got the land if it dies, which is kind of grim. To there's been a lot of jokes after that. It's at my funeral, everybody's gonna draw a card and stuff like that. So I think they changed the card to a better version because of this artifact thing, which has made the card much more viable. And they also didn't fall for the trick to use it with Astral Slide, so you could cycle it to get it back, because it has to die for you to get the card. Yeah, I really loved the card, what they made with it. I remember I was really sick when they kind of shot the winning pictures, and it kind of shows in the card, I think. which is a bit sad, but sure. No, I have no complaints about the art. It looks fine. I was really had a terrible cold. Maybe all the air conditioning in that kind of gaming center or something. So I wasn't really looking my best. They wanted me to stand up for the photo, and I didn't really want to. And then I was supposed to try to smile, but nothing came out. My voice were terrible, but I'm not sure if maybe the art would have come out the same way anyway. I don't know.
Dark Confidant.
My Invitational was the first one being played at E3. So it was an exhibition and a giant video game exhibition. It was really wild for all of us. It was the first time it really felt kind of mainstream. Going into the Invitational, every year they told us we needed to submit a card. I always did goofy cards that I knew they would never print. That one I didn't even really know what to do. And I think I was talking to Mike Rohn, who was a Madison area player. He was an outstanding limited player. He got better known on the Pro Tour later on. And he suggested Asp's Grasp. It's just a green sorcery, target player gets 9 poison counters. So at that point in Magic's progress, they weren't really doing anything with poison. So one of them was useless, 2 of them were deadly. And I just thought it was funny. I knew they would never, ever print something like that. It just didn't make any sense, but it was funny. People would read it and laugh or chuckle or not, but it satisfied the need to submit a card. I never for a minute thought they would ever print anything like that. So at that point, I was just looking for something mildly funny. It was no big deal. They talked to me right after I won the finals. They're like, no, we can't print anything like that. And yeah, of course. I'm not looking to make the game worse. So John, very good friend of mine at the time, he had Shadow Mage Infiltrator in a previous set, and it just I actually still think it was a great design. It was a great card. It just happened to be in the same set as Psychotog. There was nothing wrong with it other than it being in the same set with Psychotog. They inform me there's no way they're making a poison counter card. They tell me to think about it for the night. I'm talking to John, and he's like, this is a marketing event. The worst thing that can possibly happen for them is that you come out and say whatever they printed isn't the card you wanted, and they destroyed it, and they destroyed your prize, and this was the worst experience in the world. He's like, so just lean into making the best creature you possibly can. Just don't give an inch. Every time they try to change it, tell them they're ruining it. He's like, I know it sounds weird, but like, have a tantrum. Start saying, if it can't be like this, then I don't want any part of it, and I'm just going to denounce this entire thing. I'm going to go online and tell people I'm never going to sign one. And he's like, I didn't do that. He's like, I didn't push nearly hard enough for a better card. I think with John's card, he submitted a card and they just said okay, and they made the card. So that was his advice. And Sunday during the Pro Tour Top 8, I think it was, Mark Rosewater comes over. And he's like, well, what do you want for a card? And I had been thinking about it. So I started with, I think it was like black, 2/2. During your upkeep, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If you do, take damage equal to its converted casting cost, put it in your hand. And I put on there, it could not block, because I thought it was hilarious that everybody just chump blocked with Jens. The whole point with Jens was just getting his card out, chump blocking with it, and throwing it away. I didn't want that to be me. I didn't just want to be a card that got chump blocked with all the time. So it was just cannot block. Mark started to explain to me that, that is not in the flavor of black. It's all or nothing. Like, it can't be a may. It has to be, this just happens. And he's like, also, we can't do this. Like, this would be the best creature ever printed at black. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You guys just made an Nantuko Shade. Like, and Nantuko Shade was running wild when it was legal. So I was like, it's not even as good as that. Like, it doesn't warp the board state. It will lead to more card advantage over time. It's not an immediate winning card. I'm like, this sounds great. And he started going back and forth with me. So I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe I want a 2-drop. It has to be 2 power. And I want it to draw cards. It needs to draw cards. And I kind of leaned into the suggestion John had given me. Mark, to his credit, was outstanding to work with. He put up with my tantrums incredibly well. And I have no idea what happens behind the scenes at Wizards, but from my interactions with Mark as they were trying to figure out the card, he is the reason it came out as well as it did. I couldn't believe they made the casting cost 1 in a black. And all they did was take it from 2/2 to 2/1. Like, I had no belief this was one of those cards that was going to get splashed in a bunch of decks. But as soon as I saw it, it was way better than I had imagined. Well, and it didn't have the can't block on it. I totally agree with them from a design standpoint. Mark was absolutely right. It was both not appropriate and way too powerful. But no, I think they did a great job with the art. They did a great job front to back dealing with that whole process as far as I was concerned. I was very happy with it. Randy Bueller did check with me later. He was a little worried about the flavor text, because it's not just about the card. It's greatness at any cost, because I have a suspension on my record from the DCI. It was kind of a play there between it being me on the card and what the card does. And he's like, so what did you think about the flavor text? I think it's hilarious. Like, if you can't laugh at yourself, then what's the point, really? Like, I'm not hiding from it. I know what happened. I don't shy away from the fact that I have a previous DCI suspension, and it fit perfectly. I think the flavor text is outstanding. I don't really know who has the best invitational card. I'm just glad I didn't end up Rootwater Hunter. Like, I can't even imagine how many Dark Confidants I've signed, but when I go to an event, or each year, because I still work in the industry, I'm at Gen Con, I'm usually at a Magic event here or there, and a lot of people still have Dark Confidant on them.
because it was a good enough card that people cared about it. There was a decent secondary price on the card, which doesn't actually matter for gameplay at all, but you feel better about your card having a value associated with it. I absolutely loved it when they went and printed an old frame version for the DCI promo foil. They've been great about it. So I'm just glad it ended up being a card that was used, so people had it on them. When I got a chance to meet them, I was able to sign them, and it came a lot more naturally. And it wasn't something that someone had heard of once upon a time, but had never really bothered to see one.
Rakdos Mage.
While some people, they took invitationals as a fun getaway, I was giving my best shot to put my face on the card. So I practiced pretty hard for standard, and I came up with this innovative tooth and nail deck with a transformational sideboard. The deck was pretty good that I went a total of 4-0 with the deck, including the finals, and each win were 2-0. And like the players that I've defeated using the deck were Kai Buddha, Bob Maher, and Antoine Rowe. Like, 3 proto champions I have to go through. That was pretty memorable for me. And I submitted my original card, but there is zero feedback, there's zero discussion, there's just absolutely nothing that's going on. From my original card to the printed version, there is zero discussion. So I've noticed most of the previous winners, they went for a card advantage engine. So I wanted to take a different direction. The winner before me was Bob. So this gave me the idea that I wanted a 2 casting cost black creature that could complement Dark Confidant in a black aggro deck while being a skill intensive card and could end the game by itself. And that's a lot to ask for. So the original card turns out to be a bit too powerful. So if you want to play, you could cast it on turn 2. And if you activate it right away, if there were land on lands, you could just take the land and they just lose right away. So unfortunately, by the time it was printed, they added a red mana to the card, which is already a huge constraint to deck building for being red-black. And on top of that, they added a tap ability to activate the discard, which bumps the discard activation from turn 2 to now turn 4 instead. So these cards are meant to be played on turn 1 or 2. Discard at turn 4 is just plain awful. And the creature can't even attack if you choose to use this card. So yeah, they pretty much killed the card from the very beginning.
Ranger of Eos.
But back in the days when I played Magic, I was pretty much high all the time, except for tournaments. So I had a different vision of the world, maybe, than nowadays or when I was playing. When I submitted my card, I did not really care about what I would submit. Creating a card is very tough. So I went for something with my brother, and which made absolutely no sense, as my goal was not to win this tournament. My goal was to enjoy this tournament. I was on the road all the time. I was playing tournaments all over the world, like 2-3 times a month. And this was the only tournament in the year that I did not need to win in order to make a living. That was not a professional tournament. It was a tournament for fun where I would go with my friends, spend good time, very good time. The decks we played there were fun. That's pretty much what I wanted. I wanted to enjoy, to have fun, to maybe win. And if I won, I knew that I would have the opportunity to propose something else, to submit something else. And surprise, I won. So without asking me if I wanted to submit something else, which definitely makes sense, as the card was a nonsense. I don't even remember what it did. So I proposed, I wanted to have something for 3 mana, green, that would search for 2 creatures with 1 or less casting cost when it comes into play. So I submitted something for 1 and 2 green. I don't remember the power and toughness, maybe 1-2 or 3 that would search for 2 small guys. Wizards changed the card into what actually became Ranger of Eos. which definitely made sense as a few months later, the Elf Ball deck was created and won the Pro Tour and crushed pretty much everything it faced. The card would have been really ways too good in that archetype and in many others. I was a bit disappointed to cost 3 and white mana for 3/2, as in my mind, a deck with small creatures would not afford to play an heavy guy that does nothing really when it comes into play for a few turns. But surprisingly, it worked well in many decks. It started with Figure of Destiny, I believe. So 1/1 that would become 2/2 and 4/4, and then something big flying. And the power of this card made Ranger of Eos playable in Standard. Then it was played in many decks, sometimes good decks, Card of Callings or anyway Toolbox. So in the end, I'm very happy about it. The main thing that makes me happy about it is that now my life is very different. I have 2 kids, a wife, a work. I'm a social worker. I work with homeless, drug addict people, and Magic is like another life for me. That is so different that it's almost like another person was playing in these tournaments, and I'm very happy that I left something to this game. And in the end, I'm way more happy that I won this tournament than any GP top 8 for a few $100. Now it's my biggest achievement somewhere in Magic. I won Invitational, so I have my card. I won a Pro Tour, I won a Master, I won a GP, I won pretty much everything. I had the luck to win those. And my biggest achievement is having my card. Like people, oh, I saw you in internet. You've been a Magic player? Yeah. Oh, and you have your card. And that's what people remember. And that's what people notice when they realize that I had another life before the one I have right now. So I'm very happy and very proud, especially when I looked at your video earlier and I saw that I was among Finkel, Bude, and many great legends of the game. And that made me even more proud, and being with you now makes me proud as well.
Snapcaster Mage.
In previous invitationals, the designed card was released the year after. But in my case, in Snapcaster Mage, it was released, I think, 4 years after I won the invitational. The last invitational that I won was in 2007. My last Pro Tour was Kuala Lumpur. I flew to China right after it. It was beginning of 2008. And Snapcaster Mage was released in Innistrad, which I think was around 2010-11. So there was a gap of some years, which I had already retired from professional Magic. Not only retired from professional Magic, I completely disappeared from the world, which was not a school and being in China. The reason why the card was delayed is that initially, after I won, the card that I submitted was a land that can be used as a counterspell, which didn't go well with the Zendikar team of Landfall. Zendikar encouraged you to play all your lands for Landfall, like the Lynx and the Plate Geopede, to get the bonus. So it really went against the set having a land in your hand that acts as a counterspell. So we tried many ways to make the card work. Then they asked me for other submissions. And as I was getting gradually more distant from Magic, my change of emails with Wizards of the Coast, RD&D, also started to get slower. At some point, they just released the set Zendikar, so they just focused on going forward until finally we all got into the communications and said, okay, let's get this done. When Snapcaster was released, I didn't really realize what it meant, and I was not playing actively to enjoy, to understand. So like many things, the further it goes, the more distant you are to it, the better you understand it. Just like history, some events that happen in society, when they happen, you don't really understand them, or you cannot really analyze them. But after some time, when you look at it from a distant perspective, you can better understand the whole picture, the whole context in which it happened, and how it will impact in the future, what lesson, what will remain, what impact. And I guess it was the same with the Snapcaster Mage, because many things about Magic, about my past, even I start to remember them less, but Snapcaster will always remind me of my time in Magic. And it's good. It's good that it's so popular card. Even if people at some point will not everyone will associate my name with it. As long as everyone is playing with it, I still feel like I did something, and I'm a part. Of course, I'm very happy to be associated with Magic, being part of Magic. I'm a little sad that I didn't get to play so much with it, but at least other players are, including in EDH. I know it's a powerful card in Modern too. Me and most of the other invitational players we talked to, most of our submissions, we submitted cards that we would like to play with, cards that we would enjoy playing with, or kind of represented what we like to play in Magic. It's not like we were trying to submit cards that everyone will have to play 4 of these. No, otherwise we would just submit like 1 colorless mana, 3 damage, any target.
Thanks for watching The Tranquil Domain. The final tally for winningest invitational cards looks like this. Snapcaster and Bob in the S tier, Ranger of Eos and Meddling Mage with a strong A tier, Avalanche Riders, Solemn Simulacrum, and Shadow Mage Infiltrator in the B tier, Sylvan Safekeeper by itself in the C tier, and down here in the D tier we have Rootwater Thief, Void Mage Prodigy, and Rakdos Augur Mage. Honestly, I think they should print some new cards for those 3. Tell us what you think in the comments. Thank you.